So last week I made a video where I took a lot of Mario characters and I decided what would their Pokemon counterpart be. This time I've got a whole bunch of other Nintendo characters from a bunch of other Nintendo series, and I'm going to be doing the same thing but with all of them. And I'm saying that this is just general Nintendo characters, which it kind of is, just excluding Mario and Donkey Kong kind of stuff, because I did that in the last one. So, we're gonna start with Kirby, because there's a lot I have to cover here. Kirby would of course be Jigglypuff. They obviously have very similar designs. They can both, inflate and float, and they're both in Smash together, and they're just kind of, paired up in that sense. Achi would be Charmander, because they both have fiery tails, and they're based on salamanders. Fanta would be Duskull, because they have similar designs. And I should mention what I'm doing here is this would kind of be like, if this character was a Pokemon trainer, what would their ace be? Or, who would their partner be? Or just, if they look similar to something, it's just their partner because of that. So anyway, King Fanta would be Dusk Noir, because it's just a bigger version of the previous thing I said for both things. Adeline would be Smeargle, just because they both paint. Kine would be a Wumamula, because they're both based on Sunfish. And this would also work for Mine, which is, the female version of Kine, because it's pink. Ku would be a shiny Dartrix, because they're both owls, and Ku can shoot wings from its feathers like Dartrix can, and I picked shiny specifically just because the colors match slightly better. Pitch would be Natu, because they're both just small green birds with a kind of similar design, like they have a little feather coming out of their head. Gooey would be a shiny Ditto, just because they're both blue blobs. Naga would be Skitty, because they're both cute little cat creatures with a very similar face. Bandana Waddle Dee, this is probably the most specific thing I'm doing yet. Bandana Waddle Dee would be a Mystery Dungeon Charmander, specifically because Charmander from Mystery Dungeon has a blue bandana, which is what Bandana Waddle Dee has, and they're also both just cute orange creatures, so a lot of similarities there. Beanbon would be Smoliv, because they have kind of similar designs. Bonkers would be Rillaboom, because they're both just strong gorilla dudes, and Rillaboom's grass type relates to how Bonkers throws the seeds, or whatever that is. Bugsy would be Heracross, because they're both strong fighting beetles. Chloraline would be Purloin, because they're both bipedal, feminine-looking leopard cat things. Dark Matter would be Aegislash, so Aegislash's sword relates to the Dark Matter blade form, and the fact that it's a ghost-type sword relates to Dark Matter's ghostly appearance, and it's also got one eye like Dark Matter does. Meta Knight would be Honedge. The sword of Honedge kind of resembles Meta Knight's Galaxia, or at least the most of any Pokemon, because there's not many that are shaped like a sword, and its ribbon and eye are blue like Meta Knight's body is. Dark Mind would be Gigantamax Cinderace. This is a specific thing as well, but I'm doing it anyway because it works, because Dark Mind's final form is like a big burning ball, and that's pretty much what Gigantamax Cinderace is, or at least it stands on one. Dark Nebula would be Starmie, because they're both purple stars with a singular red eye. Daroach would be Morpeko. They're both based on rodents, and Morpeko's regular and hangry form can relate to Daroach's regular and dark form. Doc would be Orbeetle, because Orbeetle is based on a UFO, which is what Doc rides in. And Orbeetle's first stage has eyes that are kind of similar to Doc's glasses. Dynablade would be Skarmory, because they're both metal birds with blade wings. Elfilin will be Minccino, because they're just both chinchillas. Fectoforgo is Reuniclus, because at least in the initial stage of Fectoforgo, it's like a little creature in a gelatinous vat or whatever, and that's kind of what Reuniclus is. It's like a thing enclosed in gel or slime. And Reuniclus gets its name from the word reunite, which is kind of like what the two parts of Fectoforgo do. They reunite with one another to create Fecto-Elfilus. The Fire Lion mini-boss would be Pyroar, because they're both just literally fire lions. Flamberge would be Shiny Honedge, because Flamberge has a sword, and she is red, and Shiny Honedge is a kind of red sword. Francisca, and I'm continuing this trend here with it being a shiny, she would have a shiny Fracture, because Francisca has an axe and she is blue, and Fracture is kind of based on an axe. Haxorus is more so that, but it's not blue and it's shiny. Haxorus, however, kind of is, so that works. And then Zanpartizan is a Beedrill, although not a shiny one. So I guess I kind of broke that trend I just said. Anyway, it's a Beedrill because it's yellow like Zanpartizan and it has spears, and that's what her weapon is. Florina would be Swanna because they have pretty similar designs and they're both white swans. Floaty the Cell Core is Duosian, because they're both just a body floating in a liquid, and they have lumps that kind of resemble limbs, but aren't full limbs. Galactonite would be shiny as Scavalier. The shiny color specifically is pink, like Galactonite is, and it has spears and armor, like Galactonite does. And it's a bug type, and Galactonite is kind of related to bugs, when it becomes Morphonite at least. Pon and Con would be Zigzagoon and Fennekin, because they are just very basic raccoon and fox dudes. Galactic Nova would be Klinklang, because they're both sentient mechanical structures with gears and eyes. Haltman would be Iron Hands. Gordo would be Shiny Minior, because they're both just black spheres with spikes. Ice Dragon would be Frigibax, because they're both cute little ice dragons. Joe, the shark creature, would be Sharpedo, just because they're both sharks. But they also both happen to be based on torpedoes. King Dedede would be Empoleon, because they're both penguins based on royalty, and they're both blue. Morphonite would be Volcarona. They're both fiery butterfly creatures. Krako would be Thundurus, because Thundurus's cloud relates to Krako's whole body, being a thundercloud, and its tail has spikes, unlike the other forces of nature, which relates to Krako's spikes. Magolor would be Ceruledge, because Magolor's soul has two purple glowing swords, like Ceruledge does, and the soul in Magolor's soul relates to Ceruledge's ghost type. Marks would be Blacephalon, because they're both based on clowns, they're both from space, and they're both powerful creatures. Mr. Frosty would be Walrein, because they're both just icy walruses. Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright would be Solrock and Lunatone, because they're both just sun and moon shaped counterparts. Necrodius would be Necrozma. They both have Necro in their name, and it's part of their natures in the lore of both of their games, or whatever they're from, that they destroy light. Nightmare would be Darkrai, because Darkrai is literally the Nightmare Pokemon. Parallel Woods and also Phantom Tropic Woods would be Trevenant, just because it's an evil, ghostly tree. Phantom Gorimanda would be Annihilate, because it's a ghost ape. Fecto Elephas and also Chaos Elephas would be Mega Absol, because Absol's, or at least Mega Absol's wings relate to Elphalus's ear wings that it has, and also its horn relates to Elphalus's spear. And Absol is literally the Chaos Pokemon and has white fur like Elephas, or Elphilus, whatever it's called. Plug would be Elekid, because they're both small electric creatures with a plug-shaped head. Queen Sectonia would be Vespiquen, because they're both queen bees. Ribbon would be Ribombee, because Ribbon is a fairy, and Ribombee is a fairy type, and they both have Ribbon incorporated in their name. Skullord would be Emblor, because they're both angry, fiery pig creatures. Sweet Stuff would be Lantern, because they are anglerfish. Taranza would be Ariados, because they're both spiders, and Ariados has a horn, kind of like how Taranza has multiple horns. Tedhorn would be Mismagius, because they're both ghosts with a hat. Tropic Woods would be Alolan Exeggutor, because they are just tropical palm trees. Two-Face would be Yamask, because it's a ghostly mask creature. Vivigia would be Speargle, because they both paint. Void Termina would be Giratina, because they're both evil deities with both a legged and a winged form, and they have distorted boss themes, which is honestly kind of a specific and weird coincidence. Like, if I'm not mistaken, Void Termina's boss theme is a distorted version of, like, the Green stage, or at least part of it is, and then Giratina's distorts some of, like, the actual regular battle themes in it. Waddle Dee would be Dedenne, because they're both cute orange creatures with similar shaped eyes, orange cheeks, and a tan belly. Wheelie would be Varoom, because they're both sentient wheel creatures. Wispy Woods would be Exeggutor, because they're both just sentient tree dudes. Iggy Woods would be Shiny Trevenant, because they're both based on, like, autumn trees with orange leaves. Zero would be Silcoon, and that's kind of like a weak thing to go with a really strong thing, but they look kind of similar, because they're both just white spheres with a red eye. Yatagane would be Iron Thorns, because they're both robotic animals with green thorns. And 02 would be Shedinja, because they're both ghostly creatures with wings and also have a halo. Next up, we've got some Animal Crossing characters, starting with Isabelle, who would be Growlithe, because they're both just dogs, and they have actually kind of similar hairstyles. Digby would be Rockruff, because they're both brown dogs. Pete would be Dragonite, because they're both kind of iconic male men from their franchises. Tom Nook would be Greedent, because they are both greedy brown mammals. Red would be Nickit, because Red scams you in the games, and he's kind of a shady guy, and Nickit is a thief and a dark type, and they're both red foxes. Rossetti would be Excadrill, because they're both moles and have similar noses. Reese and Cyrus would be Flaffy and Mareep, because it's a pink woolly creature and a blue woolly creature. Gracie would be Farigiraffe, because they're both feminine-looking giraffes, and it wears a hood, which relates to how Gracie runs the fashion store. KK would be Toxtricity, the low-key form specifically, because this relates to both KK Slider, because of the guitar design, and KK Slider as a guitar, but also DJ KK, because Toxtricity kind of has like that electric music design going for it. And I picked low-key specifically just because KK is a chill guy. Blanca would be Zubat because they have featureless faces and similar ear shapes. Blathers would be Dartrix because they're both fancy owls with a bow tie. Specifically a green bow tie, too. Brewster would be Alakazam because they both have a mustache, and Alakazam spoons could be used in Brewster's coffee shop. Cornimer, not Tortimer, specifically Cornimore would be Seedot just because acorn. Harriet would be Furfrou because they're both poodles, and Furfrou having different trims relates to how Harriet is the barber. Cap'n would be Ludicolo because they are both based on kappas, and they both sing. Jack would be Pumpkaboo because it's a jack-o'-lantern, like Jack wears on his head, or just is his head. Katrina would be Esper because they're psychic cats. Kix would be Skuntank because they're both skunks with a tuft of hair in their face. Luna would be Muna because their names rhyme and they're both tapirs based on sleeping. Orville and Wilbur would be Doduo because they are literally a duo of dodos, and that's what Doduo is. Pascal would be Oshawott because they both are otters and they carry a scallop on their belly. Pave would be Quackleval because they are festival peacock things. Sahara would be Numel because they're both camels. Wisp would be Lampant because they're both related to lamps, they both kind of have hats, and they're both ghosts. Finally, Zipper would be Mimikyu because they're both unknown characters wearing a ominous but kind of cute disguise. And they also both have 2 ears, one of which is lopsided and the other is straight. Moving into some Metroid characters, we've got Phantoon, which would be Dusclops. They're both one-eyed, ghostly creatures, and Phantoon's 2 tentacles are like Dusclops' 2 strand things that it has. Ridley would be Aerodactyl because they're both purple dragon-like creatures with spear-shaped tails. Just a regular Metroid would be Tentacruel because they're kind of like jellyfish and they have 3 red orbs on their tops and they have similar mandibles. Kraid would be Crocodile because they're evil crocodile-like creatures whose names start with KR, and they're both bipedal. Crocomire would be Buzzwole because they're both red, grotesque aliens with 4 legs and 2 arms each. Motherbrain would be Mewtwo because Motherbrain's second form in Super Metroid is kind of similar to Mewtwo in terms of shape, and both of them are powerful creatures once contained in vats, but they were broken out. Samus would be Armarouge because they both have arm cannons, large rounded shoulders, at least in their armor, and they have colors that are kind of similar to each other, at least Samus's regular and Varia suit. Dark Samus would be Ceruledge because it's pretty much just the dark version of Armarouge. Moving into Zelda, we've got Link, who would be Zacian because they're both title game cover hero characters that wield an ancient sword, and also because of Wolf Link. Daruk would be a Alolan Golem because they have similar facial hair, the rock type relates to Goron's and Daruk's protection. Epona would be Mudsdale because they're both horse mounts from the games that they were introduced in. The 4 giants would be Probopass because Probopass essentially has like 4 different heads and that relates to each of the giants, and also it has, at least its main head, has a big nose and a mustache like the giants do. Ganon would be Embor because Embor is actually based on a pig demon from mythology, and Ganon is also a pig demon. And the dark beast form of Ganon has fire like Embor does. The Great Fairy would be Jinx because they are very similar flamboyant feminine creatures that are honestly kind of gross. The Deku Tree would be Executor because it's a sentient tree. Cass would be Chatot because it's a musical parrot dude. Navi would be Cosmog because Navi stays with Link, just like Nebby, the Cosmog, stays with Lily. And also they share a kind of similar sounding name. And also their owners, Link and Lily, start with L. Mipha would be Milotic. They're both elegant, feminine, aquatic characters with red, fin-like hair. Zelda would be Celebi, because Zelda is the Sage of Time and Celebi can time travel. And Zelda is literally a time traveler in Tears of the Kingdom. And also Toon Zelda has green hair like Celebi. Rivali would be Decidueye because they're both birds that are archers. Skull Kid would be Ogerpon because they are mysterious masked creatures. And Urbosa would be Raichu. Raichu's lightning-shaped tail resembles Urbosa's scimitar blade, and also they both just have lightning powers. I should mention I'm going through a lot of these other series a lot faster than I did of Mario and Kirby, and that's because I'm not too experienced with these other ones, so I'm just doing the ones that I know. Yeah. Anyway, for some other Nintendo series, we've got Fox McCloud, who would be Vulpix. They're both foxes, and Fox has his little fire attack, which relates to Vulpix's fire type. Falco would be Corviknight, because they're both bluish birds, and Corviknight's metallic bodies relates to how Falco and the other Star Fox characters have robotic feet, or legs, or whatever. Wolf would be Zamazenta, because they are both wolf characters with a scar over their specifically left eye. Slippy Toad would be Politoed. They're both green toads, and they have similar poses in their official arts. Crystal would be a shiny Delphox. The shiny is specifically closer in color to Crystal. They both have a long weapon that they wield. They're both based on foxes, and they both have feminine designs. Andross would be Annihilate, because, at least as far as I can tell, Andross is dead at some point, and Annihilate is a ghost, and they're both monkeys. Or at least I think he's a monkey, that's what he looks like. For some Pikmin stuff, for the red, yellow, blue, and white Pikmin, I'm going with red, yellow, blue, and white Flabebe, because they're all tiny little flower creatures, and they happen to all come in those specific colors. Purple Pikmin, however, would be a shiny Floette, and specifically one of a red flower. And I picked Floette instead of Flabebe this time because the purple Pikmins are larger, like Floette is larger than Flabebe, and the red flower because a purple Pikmin's flower is red. And shiny, of course, because that makes its stem purple, like a purple Pikmin. Rock Pikmin would be Lileep, because the rock type relates to, obviously, the rock Pikmin, and they're both kind of based on flowers to an extent. Winged Pikmin would be Shiny Celebi, because they're both little pink fairy-like plant creatures. Glow Pikmin would be Phantump, because they're both related to plants, they have ghost-like bodies and a similar body shape. Ice Pikmin would be Snover, because the ice grass type just fits pretty well. And Mushroom Pikmin would be Morlul, because they're both purple mushroom creatures with eyes, but no other facial features. Mr. Saturn from Earthbound would be Shroodle, because they have a similar body shape and snout, and a similar hair on their head. Gigas would be Mewtwo. This has been a comparison that many people have made, so I'm just not even going to explain it. Flying Men would be Hawlucha, because they're just similar in design. And Master Belch would be a shiny Muck, because they're green goop piles. Corrin from Fire Emblem would be Shiny Zygarde, because Corrin can turn into a dragon, and it's a white dragon if I'm not mistaken, otherwise his outfit, or her outfit, is white, and Shiny Zygarde is white. And then just for a few final things from just random series, the Ice Climbers will be Sneasel and Shiny Sneasel, because you have one blue thing and one pink thing, and also Sneasel's an ice type. Mr. Game & Watch would be an unknown, specifically the F-shaped one, because they both have very simple, stick figure-like, fully black designs, and specifically the F-shape kind of matches Mr. Game & Watch's face. Little Mac would be Hitmonchan, because they're both boxers. Rob would be Genesect, because they're both robotic entities that can shoot lasers. Wii Fit Trainer would be Medicham, because they're both related to training, yoga, and exercise. Captain Falcon would be Miraidon, because Miraidon is similar in color to the Blue Falcon car, and it's also got a futuristic vehicle design. Inklings would be Inkay, because they're both squids, or at least they can become squids in terms of the Inkling, and they have ink in their name. Pit would be Decidueye, because they're both archers with wings. Dark Pit would be Shiny Decidueye, because Shiny Decidueye is darker color, and Dark Pit is obviously a darker color as well. And lastly, Palutena would be Cresselia, because they're both females, and they are deities and just legendary magical entities. They have a relation to light, and they also have an evil counterpart, being Medusa and Darkrai. So anyway, that's all I've got. I'm very sorry about the noise. Of course, in addition to the fact that I've got this loud fan in my room, towards the end of the video, I don't know if it picked it up or not, some cricket started chirping, like literally right outside my window, so just a lot of really obnoxious, useless, inconvenient sounds. Sorry about that. Anyway, I was actually going to split this up into every single series into its own video, but I figured I'd smoosh it all into one, so this will be a long one. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing, and thanks for watching.